Why are so many baby boomers burning through their savings? We'll share 3 reasons, maybe a few more, plus what you can do to not be included in that group.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Remember how I said on Monday that most MoneyWise articles suck?
I do. Are you going to grab another one?
That's why I went right back to it.
So many other good ones.
This comes to us from MoneyWise. Maury Beckman wrote this piece. Here is the thing about MoneyWise pieces, if you didn't hear us on Monday. They start off good. You got a good header. Sometimes the headline does not translate into the piece. And by the end, it always devolves into a sales pitch. But let's begin where the beginning is, because this is clickbait. 3 reasons why boomers are eating through their retirement savings so quickly. How to preserve your nest egg. You know, when you get to a certain age, OG, you do start burning through your nest egg. I mean, that is a part of the game. I think the one misconception people have is that you're going to Scrooge McDuck your way to a big pile of money. It's going to create some sort of a dividend stream, right? And that pile of money is never going to go down. I think for the vast majority of people, plan. But for the vast majority of people, I think they got to be comfortable with a little bit of, you worked hard to make this money. You got to be comfortable with some of it going bye-bye.
As long as it's not going to run out.
Sure.
You're saying it's okay that it, has peaked at some point and it goes down a little bit, as long as, you're not running it to zero.
You put $2 million away, let's say. Crazy money.
Probably
Good
you put
money.
away like $700K and the rest of it's market growth.
Yeah, right. So you got this nest egg of $2 million. Let's say you're 60 years old.
Okay.
I would think that by the time you're 75 or 80, having that nest egg down to $1 million, not a big deal.
I don't know. I think that there's a balancing act here of being too miserly and worrying too much about the future around other people, right? I can't spend it because I don't want my kids, I got to leave something for the grand, there's that. I don't want to be that person. I don't think that I like the idea of people being too conservative in their spending because of the fact that, they're worried about saving stuff for the next generation. I think you should do that. I think that if you've accumulated $2 million in your example, I don't know that you need to go buy a couple of Ferraris just so that you consume it all, but it is your money. And I think people spend too little relative to what could be spent, like the 4% rule, right? Like that's the thing that people say. I think that number can be a little bit higher as long as you're okay with fluctuations in that, depending on market conditions. Because remember, the idea of the 4% rule is that you start out at 4%, increase it with inflation every year, and your money should never run out over, a 30-year retirement. And if you do the math on it, in fact, what will happen is in all likelihood, the money will continue to grow. So in your example, you retire at 60 with $2 million. By the time you're 80, you might have $4 or $5 million, which to me means you probably could have spent a little bit more than 4% early on if you're okay with, letting off the gas if things start good, if you start bumping up against a guardrail because you got unlucky with timing. I think people are far too conservative with their spending because they're worried about running out.
I do too. For people that saved,
I should say at that level. Yeah. Then there's a group of people that have haven't saved much, right? They're 60 and they have 200,000. Yeah, that's a whole different world.
But wait, OG, there's more. In these 3 reasons boomers are eating through their retirement savings so quickly, Maury starts this piece by saying that baby boomers have an average of $120,300 saved for retirement, according to Northwest Mutual's Planning and Progress Study 2024. It also explained why so many people are concerned about running out of money. Well, the problem is that they don't have nearly enough money. And that's why they are worried about it. There are 3 reasons they list here. Number 1 is they got a late start. And I don't know. I kind of groan when I read that, because you can only start when you start. Mm-hmm. But the average person started saving at 37 years old. They found the typical boomer started saving for retirement at 37, didn't do anything before 37.
Okay.
Because of this, a good number of boomers today may have a smaller nest egg than they actually need to live comfortably, and are dipping into their savings at a faster pace because they have immediate bills they can't put off. But you know what? If you're hearing this and you're 40, I don't want the message to be that you're screwed. I'm hoping the message is just do as much as you can. Get moving.
Dude, if you're 40 and you think you're screwed, you're crazy. You have so much time. It's insane. Do you have the same protections as the person who started maxing everything out at 22? No, you don't. You're 20 years behind that person. But you have an insane amount of time. That doesn't mean that you can do it without a lot of stress or anxiety, right? Because just like, people say things like, I'll donate money to charity when I have finally made X dollars, right? I'll start saving when I finally get to Y dollars in my paycheck. Look, if you can't save 10% and you're making $1,000 a week, you're not going to save 10% when you make 10,000 a week. There was that story in the New York Times about like how broke the guy is that makes 500K. And people who don't make 500K are like, what the heck? Oh my God, look at all the exit. I guarantee if you pulled that guy that did the article, pull him out of the lineup and go, how are you feeling? Be like, dude, it's crazy, man. Barely have any money. And it sounds insulting to the person that's making 50K going, dude, if I had 500,000, I would no, you wouldn't. Cause stuff changes in your life. Like there's very few people that don't have that, even a little bit of lifestyle creep. And plus New York obviously is a different world, but I'm saying like, if you can't build the discipline and the muscle, you and I were just talking about working out, right? Going, I've worked out for 3 days. How come my damn weight's still up? I haven't lost a pound.
I can't lift my arms above my head.
I've been doing this for 3 solid days. Damn it.
I didn't know you were going to bring that up. That was before we started recording. I'm like, am I sore?
No, I do the same thing. You get back in the gym, I get back on the bike, and you're like, dude, I rode at least 20 miles today. I shredded at least 30 pounds, and it's like down 0.1. Right. Like, damn it. I got to do, but it's not about the volume. It's about the consistency of doing it, and the consistency of saving and building that habit starts whenever it starts. To your point, sometimes you got to get through life to realize, get into life a little ways before you go, oh geez, I need to do something different. Some people are able to do it right away. Different incomes, different family backgrounds, whatever. And some people can't, but you're never going to be able to go, I didn't save when I made 100 grand, but I promised to save when I make 200, because you won't,
never.
You have to start with something. And even if it's, I'm going to save 1% of my paycheck in my 401k. I'm going to save 1% of my paycheck in my Roth IRA this year. And next year I'm going to try 1.5. That's how you get to the point where you're financially caught up. If that's how you feel like you're behind, or that's how you get to the point where you've maxed it out, or you read these stories about people that are, his and hers 401k maxing and his and her Roth maxing and bag of backdoor Roths and, an HSA, man, you go, how the heck are they doing it? Well, they didn't start doing it that way. Probably, it's rare. We talk to people like that on occasion, but most of the time it's like, no, every paycheck I saved a little bit more. Every paycheck I put a little bit more away. And yeah, now I'm 45 and I'm doing all this stuff, but it's because I started when I was 25. Now, if you're 40 and you're going, I haven't done anything yet, you got to start with $1. You got to start saving $50. You got to automate $50 a month into a brokerage account.
Let's talk tactically about how to get that done, because I think you're going to have a bunch of emoji, I think immediately of 2. Number 1 is automation is always your buddy. Hide the money from yourself The quicker you set automation in motion and make it so that you don't have to, we used the word discipline earlier. I don't think you need discipline. I think you need automation. Automation gets rid of this idea that, I do have to go work out to get somewhere. But if I set this automation pattern around my money, I don't have to. And what's funny is how quickly I adapt to what I automated. So we're always afraid to automate. So like, what if I need that money later? Automate it. You can change it later. Just change it later. See how it works. Push yourself a little bit. And you know what you'll find? 6 weeks from now, you're never going to miss that money. You're not going to miss it. I think that's number one. Number two is, we're afraid. This whole piece is about fear. Boomers worried that they're running out of money. And I think if you're early on, you're in your 40s or you're in your 50s and you're listening to this and you haven't started, I think you got to make fear work for you. You're always going to be afraid. You're afraid right now that you're going to not be able to save. Yeah. Switch that around and say, let's put myself at 70 years old and I have no money. Put yourself there and go, okay, I haven't saved a dime. I let fear control my life at 30, at 40, at 50, and I haven't saved anything. How do you feel now? And I'll tell you what happens. Every time that I've used that scenario, the person on the other side goes, I got to get going now. And all of a sudden they think of like 50 ways because they let fear work for them today by projecting this image of me broke at age 70.
There's a great book from Ben Hardy called Willpower Doesn't Work. And part of the piece of that book is about process and systems and, like designing your environment to make sure that you can't screw it up because you're not going to have the willpower to do it. The common theme of people who are successful is they take the guesswork out of it. You decide one time and then set up the system so that you don't have to think about it ever again. Because when do you think about your money stuff going on? Do you think about it at 9 a.m. when you're in the middle of your corporate meeting? Or do you think about it at 8 p.m. when you finally got home and you finally got to the mailbox and there's a bunch of stuff in there and there's statements and bills and Amex is calling because you forgot to pay yesterday. You know what I mean? Like that's when you think about it, right? You don't think about it when you're fresh. You think about it at the end of the day when you have crappy decision-making time. It's scientifically proven people run out of ability to make good decisions. So take yourself out of that process, remove the obstacle, which is you, and sit down with a clean sheet of paper, sit down on a Saturday morning, like you said, with your your weekly meeting with Cheryl, right? You sit down when you're fresh and go, all right, I need to design this the right way. Everything counts. Let me take everything off the table. And I'm starting with a clean sheet of paper. Everything that you read about money, what is the first rule about how to save money? Who gets paid first?
You.
Yeah. So the easiest way to do that, especially if you work for a company that has a retirement plan, is just turn it on. If it's already on, turn it up just a little bit. Change it 1%. To your point, it's not life sentence. You don't have to look at it and be like, oh God, if I change this from 5 to 6, what if I need that money? You can change it back. There's maybe your plan is such that you can only make the change once a quarter. Maybe. In which case, okay, build a cash reserve first if you don't have one. If you do have a cash reserve, I would crank that thing up until you dipped into your cash reserve. Find out, you say the words fear. I like the word stress. Find out where the stress is. Back to working out. I don't know that you should chase muscle soreness. I don't think that should be your goal at the end of every session. But there is something that feels good about that, right? You're like, I'm kind of sore. Must be growing. Getting the guns all swole for the ladies. Cheryl's gonna like me now. It's like, look at that.
Finally.
Got the pump on. Finally. There is something about finding where that stress is to decide how far you can go. Why not? You've had the thing gone this way forever. Why not yank the wheel that direction forever and see what happens? People get worried about like, well, I might have to dip into my savings. Well, what the hell do you think it's for? Savings is in case of an opportunity or an emergency. Maybe the emergency is you freaking haven't saved enough money for retirement. Maybe that's your emergency.
Big emergency later. Some boomers, Maury writes, may have also taken a less aggressive approach because they expect one thing to replace much of their retirement income. I don't think our stackers are thinking that. Of course, Social Security's what I'm talking about. Do we have any stackers thinking, hey, Social Security's going to make my day?
I don't know. I happen to believe that Social Security is going to be okay. I think if you do the math on it, it's an amazing payoff if it works the way it should. It's not as good as you investing your own money, but we know historically people are not really great at investing their own money. And there's a whole section of people that are clamoring for their 7.65% to be deposited. Well, 6.2, I guess, as it were for Social Security part, but to be let me invest my own money. It's like, you'll screw that up. Just take the government return. Even if the Social Security has a reduction in benefits, and I think it would be prudent from a planning standpoint, if you're a young person, if you're 50 and under, maybe it's prudent to say, I'm going to take the number that they send me on my statement. You can go online, ssa.gov, get your Social Security statement and work through the estimates. I think it would be prudent to take that number and knock it down by 25%. I don't see a scenario where it goes away completely.
No, definitely. I don't either. I remember work done several years ago by Jane Bryant Quinn, the financial columnist and reporter. Jane did a bunch of work on this and really came to the conclusion that that Social Security was such a popular program, and our Congress people in Washington relied on it so much for votes and protecting Social Security enough for votes that the chance of Social Security not being fixed or being around is just there's a lot of other stuff that's going to go first before Social Security changes significantly. What I was saying is the number of people who don't save OG because they think that Social Security is going to be enough money. That's what Maury's saying in this piece. And
yeah,
it's nowhere near enough money. Nowhere near.
Well, I
enough.
don't remember the exact numbers, but I think that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or 50% was originally the amount that Social Security was supposed to cover. It wasn't meant to be a national pension system of replacing all of your income. And honestly, of course, back then it was, you got it at 65 and died at 72. And, that's part of the issue with why it's having some struggles, I guess, insolvency, but it's going to be there. I think it might not be there to the extent that they're forecasting it today. And so I think it's also okay to count on some of that. But to your point, if your income is 100K and your Social Security is going to be 35, that's half, right? You need to come up with the other 35 after tax to get. So start penciling that out on your clean sheet of paper and going, well, how do I get 35,000 a year in addition to my Social Security?
Tactically, the thing I always like to do is to plan on the worst and hope for the best. And while I like Social Security being there, and I think that it will be, man, if I can plan to not have it at all, and then I get it, like that's my kind of plan. In a perfect world, sure. And obviously if we're starting with $180,000, we're not gonna be able to plan that way. But if I'm young enough that I can try to plan without it and then have it happen, that's great. Second on their list of 3 here, a lot of people forced to retire. 40% of retiree clients, according to Edward Jones. Edward Jones surveyed their clients. 40% of their retirees reported that they didn't end their career when they thought they were going to. They actually ended earlier, OG, and not because they wanted to. That's a disturbing number. I think we should all be cognizant of that. Retirement might find us instead of us finding it.
Yeah. And I also think around the resourcefulness, I'm thinking about a family member who did just a magnificently terrible job of saving money.
Epic.
And it's just, one for the record books. And is
beer.
counting on that Social Security money to be all of it, and a little bit of a pension from a company that still had a pension. But the resourcefulness of that couple that I see as they are now into their 70s with virtually nothing saved, they're still figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like we hear these stories over time about different levels of happiness, right? And it's like once you get past 60K, there's, and some studies vary. It's like 60 or 70 or 105 or whatever, but it's never like you got to get to 1 million before you're happy. It's always some tens of thousands of dollars number. It's like, take care of the roof over my head, make sure it's heated and cooled correctly. I got water and I've got food, and then everything above that is a nice to have, but it doesn't materially change my life, whether I vacation at a Four Seasons or I'm at a state park. Both of them have their pros and cons. The Four Seasons has way more pros, FYI.
Heated pool versus the dirty
that
pond,
slimy lake that everyone else swims in. Ugh, gross. Yes. So I'm also impressed by the fact that even people who have done absolutely no saving still make it work, right? Now I understand, and I completely know from personal experience that there is a base level of need, right? You have to have a certain amount of income and resources to put a roof on your head, to eat food and provide shelter and that sort of thing. But that's a surprisingly low number relative to all of this. So I also do think if you're that 40-year-old that's thinking about this, like, oh my gosh, I'm way behind, even if they pull you out at 60 and you're planning at 65, I think you're still going to be okay because you've got 20 years. Yeah, you didn't have 25, but that also doesn't mean that you have to, hang up your apron at 60 either. There's other things you can do from 60 to 70 or 60 to 80. If you, like I said, my job when I retire is going to be to mow grass. I'm going to work at a golf course and mow grass.
We had Tessa West on Monday. For people that didn't hear Tessa, you want to go back and listen to that, because I think also, in your retirement years, finding things that are meaningful, finding meaningful work, meaningful place that may bring in money for somebody that still needs money. I think that's even important for you.
Well, and a little bit goes a long ways. It's like if you're at 50K a year between, two Social Security incomes, and each person figures out a way to make $500 more a month. You go, $500, that's nothing. That's 20% more income. That's going from 50,000 a year to 62,000 a year. That is a big difference. And it's not that challenging to make $500. Now, do you want to be doing it when you're 92? Probably not.
No,
but it's doable. That's my point. Don't have despair. I'm not trying to say this is going to be easy. I'm just saying, like, if you're worried about it, you don't have to have as much concern because it'll still be okay. You have lots of time.
We've gotten some pushback from, I've gotten some pushback for things that I've said from some nice stackers. Someone on Instagram recently saying, I heard you say before that, you don't just suddenly run out of money. And I think people are misconstruing what I'm saying there. I'm saying that you, to your point, OG, when you have no money or you have very little money, you still find a way. I agree with the person on Instagram. It's not the way that you want to live. It isn't where it isn't where you want to be, but you don't go from saving $1 million to all of a sudden it's gone. You see this slow,
unless you do something really, really, really stupid or,
but
like gamble or something, you know what I mean? Like some sort of like,
Yeah, I rarely see that.
It wasn't a bad investment that made you go from $1 million to zero.
Right. I think finding an orderly way to take what you have today and work with what you have today to make it more is number one. If you can plan, that's much better. You're certainly not going to plan on having 180,000 and hope to make it all the way through retirement on that money. But to this piece's point, a lot of people do. And that's that they're in the spot that they're in. And this person on Instagram said, well, that's not really a way to live your life. I totally agree. I completely agree.
So back to your original discussion or your original, conversation about this, use that as the motivation. If the average person has 180K and in retirement or at retirement, see if you can get to 180 sooner. Like, imagine what that would be like. And you go, well, geez, that's not at all what I want to have happen. Well, what do you want to have happen? This is the crux of all of this, is choosing a different path early on, because every day that you wait, every year that goes by and you go from 37 to 47 to 52, that's that much more of a radical change. Like I said before, you change your 401k by 1%, you probably don't even notice it. Put $50 in a Roth, probably not going to notice it for most people. Now change it 6 months from now to $75, you probably don't notice it. You have that luxury when you're in your 30s and 40s to make those small changes. If you're 50 and you show up in my office and go, all right, I'm ready to get started, what do I do? We're ripping the Band-Aid off. You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna be this slow, steady, like, let's just change 1% every 6 month type of thing, because that's not going to get it done. You're going to have to make a radical change. So if you want to avoid that, then make the small changes now.
The third piece on here is the high cost of healthcare. And that is definitely something that we all need to plan on, is that, well before retirement, if you're able to, or as soon as you can, make sure you understand how Medicare works. Make sure you understand parts A, B, and D, that you've got Medicare, at least 101, hopefully 201 in your back pocket before you get there, because healthcare.
I like looking at that sometime around your 62nd birthday. You're far enough out that you can kind of really deep dive into it, but then also you're close enough that there's not likely to be radical changes. People ask me in their 40s and 50s, like, hey, so how do we think about this Medicare thing? How do we think? It's like, that's 4 presidential cycles away. I don't have any idea where we're going with this. We barely know what's going to happen with this next one. Let's wait until we're a little bit closer and there's some consistency around where things are today. That doesn't mean you should not think about it. Fidelity says quite famously that you need $300,000 when you walk into retirement to cover all of your out-of-pocket healthcare costs. Back to your 180K, that's 300,000 on top of whatever the heck else you need to live.
Haven't even done that.
So if you're 30, if you're 40, and you can say, hey, 300,000 is a lot of money, but that's really only 5,000 more a year of savings in my HSA, and I can, get there by 65. I think that's a real prudent thing to think about.
I think there's also other ways that people run out of money, but those 3 hopefully get people on the right track. If you're late in the game, do what you can do. If you're early, what's that?
I said children in college. That's how I'm running out of money.
Well, if you're early to the game, I think this is a good cautionary tale. Put yourself in that spot. I don't want to be 70 something and worried about this. If I'm 40 now, if I'm 70 now, I am where I am. I don't want to be at 80 and have the same issue.